Arise now, sons and daughters of Sigmar, and welcome to the showdown between the Empire, who shall be led by Karl Franz, and the Norskins, who are going to be helmed by Wulfric. So on that note, guys, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So as far as the build goes, we're going to be going with heavy metal cav. So we have two groups of the Knights of the Blazing Sun, which are also very fun and very thematic against Norsca. I feel like there's nothing that truly encapsulates the Empire in terms of fighting against Norsca. Just using your cav and that heavy armor, just going in there for Sigmar and having a good old time. Although I'm pretty sure Knights of the Blazing Sun have kind of a different lore thematic than Sigmar. I'm not quite sure, but anyways, for the sake of this cast, they're going to be kind of Sigmar aligned. So we have the two Knights of the Blazing Sun here. They have a charge bonus of 78. They also have magic resist, which is quite good against Norsca. Fimir do magic damage, and also Fate of Buna and Spirit Leeches and effects like that all do magic damage, of course. So it's going to make them a little bit more durable than the standard Empire Knight or Reichsguard or things like that. So that's why I think they're really worth it in this matchup. So Knights of the Blazing Sun with their charge bonus, pretty good combat stats, 42 weapon strength, are so damn good at running over the front line of the Norskins. So you get them Marauder Berserkers, 15 armor on these guys. The champions are somewhat durable. Champions do have 80 armor, but nonetheless, a full charge and getting that charge bonus with Knights of the Blazing Sun, it is one of the most righteous things in this game, and it's just really, really good as well. On top of that, to deal with big threats, we do have the Hammer of the Witches in the back, of course, to shoot at Fimir and shoot at Skinwolves and Werewolves and all that fun stuff. And we do also have the Royal Outdwarf Gryphite, so I like to pair these guys with Warrior Priests. So the Warrior Priest is going to be coming in, giving them the Grand Shield of Faith, which I believe is 22% damage resist. On top of that, if they do get cast targeted with Fate of Buna or Spirit Leech, if you can react quick enough with the Soulfire, it actually gives them 90% magic resist and pretty much nullifies the effect of that spell, which is so damn good. It's a little bit tough to do because there's like literally a split second or like 2 or 3 seconds you have to get that off, but if you do, it's very, very cost effective. On top of that, we do have the Grand Hammer of Sigmar, or just the Hammer of Sigmar. It's just going to be the standard one. It's not the Grand Volkmar himself, but yeah, it does pretty good. 26 melee attack, really going to help the Gryphites tear down Fimir and targets like that, and it's very, very powerful. Up in the skies, we got Big Daddy Karl. Karl's pretty good here. They don't have too many like direct missile threats, so yes, javelins and things like that can do some damage to him, but it's not like they have cannons or handgunners or troops like that, so he's going to be relatively safe in the skies, and he is such a good beat stick. If you get Karl Franz come in and kill a caster, kill Fimir casters, you can really beat down Wulfric, especially if he's on a horse or a mammoth with the Galmaraz here, and yeah, Karl's just a monster. Now, he is a bit of a glass cannon. You can take quite a bit of damage if he gets trapped up, so you always have to bring a Jade Wizard with him. I mean, you don't have to, but if you don't, you're most certainly going to regret it, in my opinion. And I think Lore of Life, if you're going to be going cav heavy as well with like Gryphites and Knights of the Blazing Sun, is pretty much a must. So for the main line, we're going to be getting some Brave Sigmarites. We do, of course, have 3 Flagellants and the Sons of Sigmar, which not only are quite thematic in this build, but they're also just very good. These guys are unbreakable. They can fight the Norskins to the bitter end. And basically, I mean, they're not going to win the fight for you, but they're going to hold. They're going to be proud. They're going to be strong. And, they just hold them in place and allow the Knights to just run over the Norskins, really. So Sigmar Sons, 3 groups of Flagellants in total, which I'm pretty sure Flagellants, I'm not sure how they trade against standard Marauders, but nonetheless, they'll fight to the last man. It really holds the Norskins in place and allows your elite cav to do the heavy lifting. That's pretty much it for my army. Pretty small, pretty elite. And for the hordes of Norsca, here in the front line, it's going to be Marauders and Berserkers. So yeah, Berserkers and Marauders are going to be pretty cost effective. Those Berserkers are going to just cut through these troops like butter, but hopefully we'll be able to charge them down with some of our cav units. On top of that, he has a couple javelins, which I really like. The javelins, even though they don't have like true quote-unquote armor piercing or a majority of their armor piercing value, you can see 35 missile damage. I mean, yeah, that's not bad. 18 of it, not 18, but 7 of it is AP, but they also have a really good bonus versus large. So throwing against the Gryphites and the Knights of the Blazing Sun and Karl Franz, it can actually do some decent damage. So I really prefer the javelins to the throwing axes simply because of the range, and the arc of fire is a little bit better. So he does have 2 groups of javelins, Berserkers in the back, 2 groups of Werewolves, so Skinwolves, anti-large. Now, they will have a little bit of trouble against Knights of the Blazing Sun because Knights of the Blazing Sun do fire damage, so they get a huge bonus against them. But the Skinwolves, if they are supporting the Marauders and kind of protecting your infantry, and that's really kind of the name of the game, you either swarm around the flanks of the Empire using a bunch of hounds and things like that. But I found a lot of Empire players don't use like gun builds against Norsca as much anymore. It seems to be more elite and cav focused. So if you can keep the Skinwolves amongst your troops, but play a little bit high and tight, wait for them to come in, countercharge them, drag them down, it can be very strong. He has Wulfric, the Hunter of Champions, in the back. So we're going to have the Wulfric versus Karl Franz duel, which is always pretty cool. And he does have a Firecaster. So it looks like there's going to be a Flaming Sword of Ruin to buff up his own troops. Cascading Fire Cloak. And looks like that's pretty much it. He does also have a couple Hounds. So he's got some Norscan Warhounds here in the front who are going to be sweeping around, I'm sure. And I think that's it. So it's going to be 2 Skinwolves as well as some Hounds in terms of mobility, but a ton of infantry just going to be trying to run me over. So on that note, guys, let's get this show on the road and have some fun. So Karl's going to be looking for a target, just looking for those juicy targets. The Hammer of the Witches is going to be just going straight up Rob Zombie here on these Skinwolves, just burning through the witches, slamming through the ditches, Dragula, all that good stuff. Always a good time. So I'm going to be doing a double charge here. So the Knights of the Blazing Sun, I thought about charging in, but he did have the Javelins here, and I wasn't sure if he was going to catch it, but my Knights do get a good charge here on the Norscan Warhounds. Yeah, definitely very, very solid. The Norscan Warhounds are going to be taking massive shock damage. Now, I don't want to stay too long. He does have Javelins here, and that probably wasn't worth it, because the Javelins, I really do underestimate their damage. I'm like, okay, I'm shielded, I'm armored, it's not going to be so bad, but when I turn and and run is when I actually take a lot of damage. So here I'm going to be losing a couple Knights of the Blazing Sun. I think actually only one model so far, so a good regrowth should be able to top those guys off. But I mean, it has some value because I was able to slow down his advance and get more damage on the Skin Wolves from the Hammer of the Witches, so it's not a complete loss. So we're going to be dropping a regrowth here, not going to be an Earthblood. Regrowth a little bit better for healing something like this. So we're going to be dropping that right here, falling back here. I'm going to be pushing the Knights of the Blazing Sun up the hill here, waiting for an opportunity to get a downhill charge, trying to pull his Skin Wolves up. And at this point, I'm going to be moving my Flagellants up to this area and trying to form a bit of a flank fight here where my Knights of the Blazing Sun can collapse on the Javelins and the Berserkers and things like that. Over here, it looks like some of his doggies are going to be trying to sneak up and around the side. So he's going to be trying to get up and around the Flagellants. You can see my opponent going to be kind of weaving the needle here, but I have my Knights of the Blazing Sun in reserve. Now I have two options. I can charge in the front here, I can go get the doggos, and I'm most certainly going to be pushing on the Norsca Warhounds right there. In the meantime, Karl Franz and the Cav units are taking a fight over here, so I was able to get a decent push on the Marauder Hunters with Javelins. Now I didn't do lethal damage or anything, but all you really need to do is get Karl in there, do a little bit of terror routing, and it's not going to be a bad situation. So I'm really just trying to bait in this fight. I want the Skin Wolves, I want the Berserkers, I want all these guys to come in and fight the Flagellants, at which point I can pull back with the Knights of the Blazing Sun and Karl Franz and hammer those guys down. So we're going to see how that goes. So the fighting's underway over here. Flagellants are going to be piling in to fight the Werewolves and company, and the frontline fighting is about to be underway as well. Knights of the Blazing Sun have caught those wolves on the side, and you can see we're actually able to shatter them, which is quite nice. So they're going to be going off the map. And now we have the fight we want. The Flagellants, I'm just trying to get them in front of the Werewolves here, and the Werewolves do get a little bit caught up. So at this point, I pull back with the Knights of the Blazing Sun. They're going to be couching their lances, coming in for Sigmar, and you can also see Karl Franz is going to be coming in with Golmaraz. So the Emperor is going to be leading his fanatics down here. And there are a bunch of Spearmen, which is a little bit scary for the Knights of the Blazing Sun. Skin Wolves, of course, bonus force large, but with Karl Franz and the Flagellants, stand your ground going down, and Golmaraz, we're going to be making really quick work of these Skin Wolves. So you can see they're terrified. They've lost 7 models already, and Knights of the Blazing Sun do a ton of damage against those type of targets. In the meantime, we did push in the Royal Altar of Griffites and the Warrior Priest, as well as the Jade Wizard to the middle. You can see a fat cannonball going down to the Femir Balefiend. And since we were able to kind of overwhelm this flank, the Knights of the Blazing Sun made quick work of the Skin Wolves. And man, they do such good work against Skin Wolves. It's pretty incredible. So we're able to get those guys right there. And now we're going to be pulling up and just slamming into the back of the Berserkers. And man, these Flagellants are really holding quite well. You can see they're up to 42 kills right here. The other ones here in a bit of a 2-versus-1 fight actually have 9 kills, so not so good. But yeah, they're holding well. I think these are champions. So champions have really good armor. Flagellants have pretty terrible AP, but they're still accomplishing their goal. They're holding firm. They're doing a good job, and hopefully paying their dues. Now, Karl's going to be pulling back up in the sky, looking to get some more of those juicy targets. But the Norskins are going to be collapsing here. So the Marauder champions with great weapons and these Javelins are going to be scooting in. So it's a little bit of a scary situation. So I'm trying to get my Jade Wizard back, my Warrior Priest, and just getting another charge on these Berserkers here. They were kind of stationary. So I was like, let's get in there. Let's get those Griffites, pin those guys in, because there was a big opening to my back line, which I really don't want him to get on my Hammer of the Witches. So we're going to be popping our buffs, and Karl Franz in the meantime is going to be going after the Caster, which is a pretty good target. I believe Femir are infantry size though, at least the Balefiend, is he? Oh, he's actually large. Okay, so Karl Franz with the bonus versus large on Golmaraz is going to be pretty good against that guy. So if we take a big look at the battlefield, a lot of the Norskins have been washed upon the shores here. The Javelins have been pushed back by the Knights of the Blazing Sun. And over here, I was able to deal with the Werewolves. So the Knights of the Blazing Sun here are going to be collapsing into the back, trying to get on the Javelins, because my opponent actually gets a really good catch. So I was ahead in the balance of power, but he was able to normalize it. So I charged in here with my Griffites. I then pulled back and charged another target, but unfortunately, my Jade Wizard is just being beaten down by Berserkers and Javelins. He's got like spears sticking out of his head. Definitely not feeling too good, and he's going to be shattering and breaking here. So I'm without a caster now. If I make any big slip-ups, for example, Karl Franz gets caught or anything like that, I have no healing. It's going to be really, really rough. I have to be extremely careful now. So Karl Franz is going to be pulling back, doing some cycle charging here on the Balefiend. But look at these Flagellants. They got 8 models. They're holding back a tide of champions. And I mean, I guess you can go with other state troops, but for the most part, I really do like Flagellants or unbreakable troops if you're going to be going with a very cav-heavy play, because it holds them in place, like I said. So Karl, I have to be a little bit careful. Of course, Wulfric, the Wanderer over here, is looking for that fight. But the Griffites are going to be coming in, getting a huge charge in this Balefiend, and he's going to be having a really bad time. They all have anti-large. Karl is going to be going in for the champion duel, so he's going to be going after Wulfric. And I don't think I have Golmaraz right now, so it's going to be a little bit scary. I'm sure he does have Hunter of Champions. Over here on the backside, you can see the Knights of the Blazing Sun are going to be just cycle charging into champions here, so that's pretty good value for me. And yeah, this Femir Balefiend is getting whooped on. Karl Franz doing so much damage. The Warrior Priest coming in as well, so he's going to be clubbing him for Sigmar. And yeah, Sigmar Pound Town going on here. So Stand Your Ground is going to be buffing up the Royal Altar of Griffites, who don't want to be in sustained combat versus like infantry, but nonetheless, we should be able to get these guys a little bit lower. We do have some Flagellants helping. I think there's one left. Look at this guy. What a champion. I kind of hope he doesn't go in and fight. Like, I hope he just kind of like sits here and relaxes, because he's paid his dues. This is the last of his people. He's got 9 HP. He's waving his mace, challenging these champions to come in and fight him. And the champions are, they're afraid of his call, so he's just going to be hanging out there. What a hero of the Empire. I hope he just stays there. Anyways, Karl Franz going to be dueling here, and he's actually taking some damage. So the Norskins might have a chance to get back in the game here, as Wulfric is doing a really good job against Karl, but Karl does have the Shield of Faith, the faith in Sigmar, keeping him strong, and now he's starting to give it back to Wulfric. He has the support of the Warrior Priest. He has the rollouts of Griffiths here with the Hammer of Sigmar, and the Marauder champions are starting to shake up here, and I do have some Flagellants coming back from a victorious fight up here in the north. So the Flagellants coming back, Knights of the Blazing Sun, we're able to push off these troops, but there's a tide of Norskins coming in on the other side. Spearmen, we have Marauder champions, we have Berserkers, a lot of guys are coming in, and these Spearmen in the back are holding for the Hammer of the Witches, but I don't know if they're going to be able to stop this onslaught, but it looks like Wulfric is going to be getting canned by Karl, and he did a really good job. Wulfric, against, pretty tough odds here. The Griffiths and Warrior Priests and stuff held pretty good. You can see the cannon, a little bit of overkill going in there on Wulfric, but nonetheless, Karl Franz going to be pulling back up in the air, cleaning up the last of those troops. These brave Spearmen are holding. I'm really surprised they were able to hold back Berserkers for that long and get 27 kills. Some Flagellants are going to be tying up the main Norscan core, and here comes the Knights of the Blazing Sun for the finishing charge. Going to be rescuing the beleaguered Spearmen. Karl Franz, the Emperor, going to be charging in, getting some huge damage as well. The Blood Roar going to be lowering the leadership of all these troops. And it looks like there's going to be some witchcraft going down. I believe it was the Warrior Priest dropping the Grand Soulfire Bombardment, which isn't going to be helpful. Do a little bit of damage here, but nonetheless, that's going to be all she wrote for the Norskins. So you can see the Norskins are going to be turning and running in every direction as the Empire Cav are able to clean them up. So well played. It was a fun battle for sure. I love any opportunity to get to use Knights of the Blazing Sun and Flagellants and Hammer of the Witches, just all these heavy metal badass units, plus Karl Franz is just such a cool character. But yeah, he's very good. And as far as the build, I think it's pretty good against Norsca. I'm trying to think. It might have some trouble against Famir. I mean, against Famir, we do have the Hammer of the Witches, we have the Griffiths, we have Karl, and they can all do pretty good against those type of targets, but I'm kind of curious how it would go against like a ton of infantry, just cheap ones, like a ton of Marauders and a ton of Famir with great weapons and things like that. It might be a little bit tricky for sure, but I feel like it's a pretty good build. I really do like the Flagellants for just holding and not breaking. It really allows you to hammer. They're going to be the Anvil, and the Hammer coming in is going to be Knights of the Blazing Sun, which 86 and 110 kills. They were fighting till the very late game, and yeah, I really liked them quite a bit. The cannon was good. It killed a couple skin wolves in the beginning, was able to kind of force my opponent in. If I didn't have that, your opponent can take a little bit more time with their positioning, but if you do have like Hammer of the Witches or a cannon or anything like that, it does kind of force them in, which I think is very valuable. But yeah, Warrior Priest is pretty good. Just it's like having another caster, a pretty good combatant. He gives leadership with benediction to nearby troops, which helps his cav units, not break and stay and fight. And yeah, I feel like he's just pretty good. Yeah, Karl Franz is an absolute beast, but again, he's a glass cannon. If you're a little bit newer to the game, I would probably recommend, instead of using Karl, just using Boris and getting the healing item on him, Boris Todbringer. It's a little bit tougher to kill him, and you can make more mistakes and he can come back and heal himself. But Karl Franz, once you're a little bit more experienced, he is just an absolute, just surgical laser. He just goes in there, he takes out a target and does a ton of work. But again, if he gets caught by like skin wolves and, let's say, Norscan ice hounds, and he gets locked down by frostbite, he's going to be getting put in the can pretty quick. So you have to be very, very careful. But yeah, the build was pretty fun. And for the build of my opponent, the Head Mantis, the Marauder Berserkers, I think you don't need that much to kill state troops, but I do think like mixing in two of those guys is pretty good. I like Wulfric. The Firecaster, I think there's better choices. Against the Empire, I think Spirit Leech is very, very good. On top of that, I think Fate of Buna can be pretty good. Granted, the Empire does have some counters with Lore of Light, but I think it's a little bit better than Lore of Fire. For the front line, Champions with Great Weapons is pretty good. A lot of Empire players do mix in Greatswords, so I like that he does respect the AP by having a couple, or having some, AP in the front line with the Champions. And yeah, the Skin Wolves can be good. Knights of the Blazing Sun really do give them the business. Sometimes against Empire, I do see players get the Armored Skin Wolves, which I think is a pretty good choice because the armor is very helpful against Empire Knights, Knights of the Blazing Sun, troops like that. So there is some give and take there, but I haven't played Norsca against Empire in quite some time, so I'm going to have to try the other side of the coin out. So again, very well played to my opponent, Head Mantis. And on that note, let's go ahead and jump out and take a look at some theoretical builds that I think would be pretty good against the Empire. So here we go. So Empire, or Norsca against the Empire. So let's go to custom battles here and do it to it. So I don't know what that build is from. That must have been like against Vampire Coast or something. So we're going to be going to Norsca. And where art thou, Norsca? It's been a long day. Where art thou? I'm just so out of it right now. There we go. Okay, so I think that Wulfric is a pretty good choice on horse. I think that's the right decision. The Hunter of Champions is really good, so I think he was 100% right there. You're going to get a Shaman Sorcerer with Death. Just probably put him on a horseback or something so you can get away from some threats. And Fate of Buna and Spirit Leech, going to be pretty much the staples here. Scroll of Power can be pretty good, or a Scroll of Shielding. You can actually drop that on Wulfric when he's dueling Karl and things like that. I think it's going to be pretty good. And again, you do need to respect the AP in the front line, so I think getting a couple Marauder Champs can be good. So two of those guys, and from there, I just think standard Marauders do the trick. They're really good against 8 troops, especially with the Enrage mechanics. So you have a couple AP troops in the front line here. Berserkers, I mean, might be a little bit of overkill. Plus, they're so squishy that like sometimes they just get burned down by cav units really quick. But man, they really did beat the shit out of my caster. So there's an argument to them, but I think going super wide is going to be good. I do love the javelin pick. I think that's really really good and disruptive against Empire heavy cav. From here, I would probably recommend getting the Miststalkers. Miststalkers have stock, so they're not going to be taking a ton of damage on the way in. Plus, they're just beast mode. They'll crush the great swords in the front line. And a couple Norscan Ice Wolves are going to be good as well. And do we want to get Marauder Horse Masters? These guys might not be bad. Or Throwing Axes? Throwing Axes could be pretty disruptive for sure. So, but I like having a super wide front line. It does really kind of make the Empire very, very busy and have to deal with those. So maybe we cut one Javelin there. We have the two Norscan Ice Wolves, which are super important. If Karl Franz lands or anyone gets out of position, the Norscan Ice Wolves are like clutch. Those guys do such good work. So from here, we could get the Maws of Savagery. I mean, the armor is pretty helpful. They're pretty good against the cav units. I do like the Skin Wolf pick. It's a little bit dangerous, but man, do we go with the Throwing Axes, the Horse Masters? Horse Masters are pretty good. I think getting two Horse Masters is going to give you poke against cav units, and even though they don't have quote-unquote AP, they still do pretty good against like heavy cav, and especially Demogryph Knights with halberds who don't have shields. So we get a couple of those, and then from here, I would really like to mix in like one group of Skin Wolves. I just have to kind of cut something, so maybe we just do this. Yeah, we have the one great weapon here in the back. We can get him. So yeah, it's going to be, 4 Marauders in the front line. From here, we can get the Maws of Savagery. And I think, do we want to get Maws of Savagery? I mean, yes, they have really good AP. They're such a big target, though. The Empire is so good at isolating targets like that with cannons and things. But, I mean, I guess it depends on the map, but terrain could be very, very helpful. So from here, we could cut the horse here, which is going to allow us to get, I mean, yeah, on foot, he's going to be tough to snipe anyways. But having him on horseback, yeah, it's too useful. I think we need that. I think we really do need that. Is there anything we can cut here? These are all really good abilities, so I don't think there's anything we can particularly cut. So I really would like to get one more infantry unit or some Marauder Spears. So from here, we have the champion. You're basically just going to be beelining him for greatswords. Maws of Savagery are going to be pretty useful. We could cut a Javelin. The Miststalkers I feel like are really good as well. They can just kind of collapse and even harass the back line if they want to. The Horsemen can be backline harass tools. They can be really good against large flying targets. Let's do a little bit more brainstorming here. We don't have quite enough, because I know the Chaos Marauders are a little bit cheaper. They're a little bit cheaper, man. If we cut that champion, we can get so much more. But I guess having the Deathcast around here, no, I think it's worth it. I think having them on horseback is worth it. So I guess we could just chevron up the Marauders, which will make them a little bit more efficient. So a build like this would be pretty good. I mean, these guys are going to be able to beat down state troops. 37, 33, and 28. They'll even trade good against Flagellants with these chevrons. So yeah, try this out. So again, well played to my opponent. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this Empire vs. Norsca showdown. And we will see you guys next time. Take care.